surround yourself by somebody else that looks you in the eye and says, you can do this. You got this. Because often we don't believe in ourselves until somebody believes in us. Then you develop those habits and you expand and grow. And then it really just cascades and compounds, and you'll find yourself down the road wealthy and a lot more free. And then you will not respond emotionally and so negatively. Like when the information comes in, pause, you get a gut reaction, then ask yourself, is there another meaning I could give this? Is there another way I could look at that? And I think you'll find that there are better ways than your first reaction.
And welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm Espen. Today I'm joined by Rock Thomas, CBO and founder of Rock Thomas International. As seen on Goldcast, Rock Thomas has impacted over 100 million lives. He's the host of the top-rated Rock Your Money and Rock Your Life podcast, best-selling author, motivational speaker with over 30 years of experience now in personal development and coaching. He's worked alongside Tony Robbins, T. Harv Eker, Deepak Chopra, Carolyn Myss, and John Gray, and many others. I'm excited to have this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, tune in, lean in, because we're going to be talking about how to overcome obstacles, how to get shit done, and how to make sure that the person that's looking back at you when you're looking at the mirror is going to give you the exact tools that you need to make each day a magical day. It's about getting yourself out of the way and stepping into greatness. Rock Thomas, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Espen. I appreciate it. I'm always grateful to be able to share my failures and some of my successes, and hopefully people can shorten the curve to their success.
That's so good, man. Thanks for taking the time. And before we pressed record, I asked Rock, hey, tell me, what are you a specialist at? And you said something like, getting our own selves or parts of ourselves out of the way and stepping into our true life. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know you've had a lot of experience now, 30 years in this personal development field, mindset, etc. What would you say are some of the most important tools for people to take to be able to do exactly that, to get out of their own way?
Yeah, there's a study that says that by the time we're 12 years old, we've heard the word no over 14,000 times. And the canvas of our mind is so fragile when we're growing up that if we're not intentional with a dialogue that's empowering through our imagination, we end up really living a very afraid life. And most people, sadly, they get up and they're fearful all day long. They don't feel good enough about themselves. They're afraid about their job. They're not sure. If you've ever been in a group of people and you said, okay, everybody introduce themselves. And you can just watch as you scan the group and people are like, what am I going to say? And now I teach people, go first. Because when you go first, you get that fear out of the way, and then you relax while the other 14 people introduce themselves. But if you're the last person, I'm sure you've been in this situation, you're thinking about what are you going to say. Somebody says what you want to say. You're like, oh God, I can't say that. Darn it. And we're stuck so much in our heads, and we're nowhere close to being free. We always think one more thing, then I'll be free. One more accomplishment, then I can relax. And it just doesn't work out that way. So I've spent a lot of time helping people direct their thoughts through affirmations, yes. Through incantations, yes. Through asking better questions, yes. And through reframing. And it's a cycle that's never over. And so once you develop these habits of pathways where you can think better, you can quiet that fearful mind, which, by the way, is designed to keep you alive. You need that voice, otherwise we would do stupid stuff. But there's got to be a really good mix where you're not the worrier, but you're more the warrior of your own thoughts. And so that's what I'm pretty passionate about.
Oh, I can tell. I love that power. I love that masculine presence of it too, because I think at the moment, well, just generalizing, it seems like a lot of people in the world are quite passive submissive. They're kind of sitting back, waiting for shit to happen or other things to take place before they take action. I mean, this is indeed a pattern. What would you say to that? If someone now is going, oh, I don't know, the whole passive submissive and or I don't take action in my life, It's a big problem. I know in my life, the standards that I have this year are way higher than the standards I had last year. Because if the standards that I had last year were the same standards I had this year, I'm not going to fucking go anywhere. What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you what, it's a really great point, Espen, is since COVID, I really feel the world has changed a lot. People got used to cocooning and isolating, and it made it easy for them not have to confront basic fears of going out and meeting people and saying hello. And it's now really snowballed. The younger population for a while, you remember the cancel culture? I had people that just stopped working by email, wouldn't even talk to me. They're just like, I'm done. I have mental stress. I'm done. Checking out. Accountability's gone by the wayside. Integrity's out the window. And so the world is changing a lot. And I've had to really recalibrate the way I feel about the different people I have in my businesses, because I was experiencing a lot of frustration. Because if somebody sends me an email, I respond. And I send these emails, people don't respond. And I'm like, what is wrong with people? I was getting angry at people's what I called lower standards than mine. And I had to just really recalibrate. So as I work with people, I'm discovering that people are more stressed out than ever in the last 30 years, ever. Everything's stressing them out financially. Their health is crap. And it's so crazy because you can Google anything, how to eat healthy, and there'll be a whole bunch of information. People still don't change their bad patterns because we've been, through the media and through conglomerate companies, we've been brainwashed to eat junk and to consume junk and garbage in, garbage out. So I think that this time is more important than ever to do the work you're doing and to try to wake some people up. But it's a lot of work.
And it's crazy. I absolutely agree with you. You know, you see during the COVID times, the government, you know, in many countries, even in Australia, paying out so much money for people just to sit at home and become complacent. And it seems like a lot of people have lost the grunt or the point of awareness where I need to put myself into situations on a regular basis that'll stretch me, that'll allow me to grow tough skin. You know, better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war. And we just don't know what's happening globally, what maybe happen globally. But I know that a lot of people aren't ready. And a lot of people are ready. I've been preparing for whatever might be coming for a very long time to harden my body, mind, and spirit. And at the same time, to soften and to be kind, loving, and present, and slow down and breathe and all those things. But I need to get my mind right. Because as I said, it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. How do we do that now? Let's say that we have become complacent. There have been things in our reality that we've been avoiding. And I say we to kind of, you know, soften it a bit. But if people have been doing that and they've not been leaning into what they need to do to be their best, what are some advice? If the listeners and viewers are going, you know what? Yeah, I think it's time for me to actually get off my ass and start doing something about my life. What are some of the first steps?
Well, I like what you said, because you may have heard this before, is that tough times make strong men, and strong men or people make easy times, and easy times make soft people. And my father went through the war, and so he raised me on a farm, and we were talking before, I'm hard to kill, and I'm hard to kill emotionally and mentally. I'm resilient because I went through tough times. Youngest of 7 kids, had to feed 22 horses before I earned the right for breakfast. The young population isn't experiencing that kind of difficulty right now, and they don't want to. They've watched my generation, workaholics, work hard, and they're like, they don't look happy. They're divorced. Why am I going to copy that? So there's lots of evidence for them to try to find a different way, but they're not really leaning in to demand the best of themselves. They're not fulfilled. And let's face it, when I grew up, I remember the first time I saw my Playboy magazine, I was 15 years old. It was at the cafeteria table. Some guy had it under the table. And I was like, what? I freaked out. I had a physical reaction. And I had to leave the room to control myself. But today, you know, kids they have access to so much at such a young age that they're numbed by these experiences. And I don't know how it's going to play out when they're 30, 40, or 50, and they have a chance to go through what most of us go through later on. But I would say that the thing that I teach is that first your habits make you, and then your habits make first. How does that go? At first, you make your habits, and then your habits make you. And so I do things like right now in my mastermind group, we're doing 100 push-ups a day. Well, guess what? As soon as I wake up, I do 30, 40, 50, 60. Then I do batches of 25 throughout the day. Right now, I'm at 480 for the day. Why? Because after you do 100, it gets easy. The habit became so easy. Now I went for a walk with my dog, and every time my dog stops to sniff a bush, I drop and do 20. And so I've found ways to be able to stay healthy in spite of my timeline or how much time, et cetera, I have. So what I teach people is insert the different habits. Have a miracle morning. Have something that you do in the morning that empowers you. Have a conversation with yourself. My first book I wrote is called The Power of Your Identity, and you will never outperform your identity, your self-image. So I say things repetitively to encourage myself to be my best version. Once I was working out with the trainer, and he goes, "Rock, you're like a ripped athletic machine." And I went, "I'm keeping that one. That's mine." And so now when I work out, I have an identity of a ripped athletic machine, and that's what I aspire to. And so I keep on repeating to myself when I think about my health identity, "Rock, you're a ripped athletic machine." I'm not a lazy 62-year-old guy. I am fit as a fiddle. And so I describe myself to myself to stay on that path. What do most people do? They don't even have a plan to how to describe themselves. So they just take whatever life offered them. And if somebody said to them when they were younger, "You're short, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you'll never amount to much," that's usually the narrative that they play for the rest of their life. So it's time to change the recordings, to change the tracks in your brain. Just like if you were an actor in a movie, if Brad Pitt gets a role in a movie and he's supposed to be this, very handsome, suave guy, then he'll start to act that way, hold himself that way, smile that way. Yet people don't take on these new identities. They just kind of by default live into what they were. So it's a long answer to your question, but you have to be intentional with how you see yourself and then find a way to live into that.
I think this is solid. Okay, for listeners and viewers, write down, take a note. What is your identity, or what do you want the part of the identity to be? And I do just the same, Rock. I've had to redefine myself. As I said, I looked at my standards in 2023, for example, and one of the things that I realized is that both my parents are alcoholics. My mom has passed now. My dad's still alive. And their parents are alcoholics as well. And by that, I mean, just the habit of drinking way too much alcohol. I grew up as a teenager, as a young adult, drinking way too much alcohol. Almost every weekend, it was out and having beers with the boys. And then I caught myself last year going, hang on, I just had a stressful week. And then when I finished my week, I went to the kitchen and I opened up a bottle of red wine and had a glass of red wine. Why did I have a glass of red wine? Not because I wanted to just celebrate, because I wanted to feel better. And then I observed the pattern of, hang on, what the fuck? I'm drinking alcohol to escape. Cut that pattern, because otherwise this is controlling me, and I am out of control if I cannot let go of stimulus like that in my life. So what I've realized, Rock, which is something that I'd love for you to comment on, is that so much of the time we are run by our emotions, and our emotions lead to these actions, some beautiful and some horrible. And then we seem to allow the mind to kind of justify that those habits are okay. Not saying that having a glass of wine is not okay. What I'm saying is not okay for me. So as of last year, I've quit alcohol. I did the same thing the year before, 8.5 months, didn't touch a drop. God knows how long I'll go for this time. I'll go for as long as I need to go for me to be able to prove to myself that I can completely surrender it and then reintroduce it if I want to do so. So what are your thoughts on emotions and how they drive habits and actions, and what we can do to override those old programs?
Yeah, great question. I think that humans want to do everything they can to avoid pain. And so if you feel bad, alcohol or drugs or pills or food or distraction is virtually, offered everywhere. And the media supports that. Hey, you're tired, have this. Hey, you can't have sex, take this pill, blah, blah, blah. So it's offered everywhere. And like I said before, if you're not intentional about owning your own narrative, you're just going to default to what's offered in the world. Another example is, the way that people are told, hey, work your whole life. When you're 65, retire. I started a men's tribe for the exact reason that I thought that was bullshit. When I read the 4-hour work week, I thought, Tim Ferriss is onto something. Is when you're 35, 40, 45, that's the time when you can climb Mount Everest, when you can do cool stuff around the world, but you don't have the money. So then you need to flip the script and find a way through the teachings of Robert Kiyosaki or other people to put your money to work for you. And when you do that, you leverage and you can then not have to work. I retired at the age of 40 and I wrote 3 books. I went golfing. I put my son in a school of golf. We spent 150 days a year on the golf course. We had magical experience, pretty much everything that I didn't have with my dad, because we often do the opposite. But I did that because I followed the teachings of the people that are more resourceful than what they teach in the general world. And so you've got to surround yourself with people that have the results that you want. You want to listen to conversations that are high-minded, high energy. And what I got from Tony Robbins in 2001 when I went to his event, and his events, if you've ever been to one, they're 12, 14, 16 hours a day, 4, 5, 6 days in a row. It blew my mind what I could do by staying up late and the energy I had that I never knew I had. He gave me that reference, and I thought, what else don't I know? What else am I not living into? What else am I not doing? And so I just started to push myself and push myself and push myself. And I found that, I could actually be an author. I thought, who am I, a little farm boy from Montreal, to be an author? But I had something to say, so I wrote it and I became an author. And then I had, imposter syndrome. And I even hid my book for a year or two. But eventually I grew into it. And then I became a speaker, and it just grew bit by bit. So surround yourself by somebody else that looks you in the eye and says, you can do this. You got this. Because often we don't believe in ourselves until somebody believes in us. Then you develop those habits and you expand and grow. And then it really just cascades and compounds, and you'll find yourself down the road wealthy and a lot more free. And then you will not respond emotionally and so negatively, like Viktor Frankl says in his book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says, pause. When the information comes in, pause. You got a gut reaction, and ask yourself, is there another meaning I could give this? Is there another way I could look at that? And I think you'll find that there are better ways than your first reaction. Somebody doesn't call you at 3:00, you have a meeting, and you're thinking, well, that person's irresponsible. Maybe, you know what? Maybe they just forgot. Maybe I didn't confirm the appointment. Maybe they're having a good time. It doesn't have to be maybe they're in a car accident, right? So the thoughts bubble up, but we have to pause. And I think the best thing, Espen, is ask an empowering question. That directs your mind, and then it can take you to a positive place versus a negative place.
Oh, I love this. Can you repeat that question from Viktor Frankl about changing the meaning? And let's everyone just tune into this. When a situation arises, we may ask this following question.
Yeah, when you're at a situation, nothing has meaning but the meaning you give it. So you look at something and then you come up with your first meaning. I suggest that you scan like you're in a competition. What else could this mean, right? What other meanings could I give this? My wife yells at me. I'll be like, man, she's just always so upset. Well, what else could it mean? Maybe I've neglected to give her attention. Maybe she had a rough day. Maybe I need to go over and give her a hug. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. Maybe she just hasn't had a chance to, do some self-care or have a bath, and she's just tired. I don't have to make it about me. So look for a better meaning when you get a meaning that comes up that isn't resourceful. That's what I attempt to do.
Oof, this is so cool. All right, guys, this is, imagine this, learning a new language. Like there's two areas in the brain called Broca's and Wernicke's areas. They're the two areas that are connected in the brain when you're learning a new language. The more languages you can speak, the more active those two parts of the brain are or is. Now, here's the key. Brock is talking to us about changing a pattern, changing a habit of being able to ask quality questions. So something arises in your reality and you change the question. What is the meaning? What do I want the meaning to be? What could be a more empowering meaning? Now, here's the key. You cannot change the past. Let's say something happened yesterday and you think it's challenging or traumatic. If you think of a circumstance or situation in your life, right? And then immediately, because as you mentioned, and you didn't use these words, but you said the brain is designed to keep us alive. The hindbrain, the reptilian brain, is looking at it going, oh, this is dangerous. I need to get away, or I need to have a negative connotation or experience or connection to this, because if it's uncomfortable, it could mean death. No. If it's uncomfortable, it could mean transformation and healing and liberation. Normally, it won't be death. So you got to lean into it, right? And here's the key. Since you can't change the past, what happened yesterday, what happened last week, last month, you can change the meaning. And if you change the meaning, you change your life. So let's take this opportunity to kind of drop into that. What is it in your reality at the moment that's an uncomfortable situation, something that has taken place, where you could ask the question, what meaning do I want to give it? What meaning is the most powerful meaning to give it? That's so cool, man. And I love that. I love that you have a bit of tough skin about you. And I'm very much the same. Grew up in a pretty rough place, had an interesting childhood. You went through some pretty major challenges. And I have been able to go back and look at those things that I've experienced and been so grateful for each and every one of them, because if it wasn't for those challenges, I would have not become who I am today. So for those of you out there recognizing that this is possible, ask the question, what is the meaning that I want to give to my challenges that's an empowering rather than a disempowering meaning? I think this is so cool. There is something that comes to mind, buddy, and I want to ask you this because it seems to be simple in theory, but it seems to be difficult for people to actually maintain emotional freedom, happiness, and success. Why is it so difficult for many to maintain it, do you think?
Well, I think that happiness, actually, I've learned later in my life, shouldn't be the goal. I prefer to replace it with being fully alive. And I'll tell you why. Depending on your definition of happiness, if you look at a coach on a sports team, they don't look very happy most of the time. They're behind the bench, they're behind the team, they look very serious, yet they love their job. They absolutely love their job. If you interview them and say, this is the dream job of my life, right? So what's really happening? They feel purposeful. They feel like they're making a difference. They're engaged in decision-making, strategy. They are consumed by the moment. They may not be happy, but they are fully fucking alive. And that's what I shoot for. So that when I go outside and I live in Canada sometimes and there's a snowstorm, I could be unhappy that I have to clean off my car, or I could be fully alive by putting my favorite song on and grabbing that brush and doing a dance around my car and being fully alive and getting a free exercise while I'm doing it and busting the desire to wish things were easier. In life, if you do what is difficult, life will be easy. If you do what is easy, eventually life will be difficult and you'll be in pain all the time. So I arrive at my problems attacking them, finding ways to be joyful. The elevator doesn't work. Yes, let's do the stairs. Let's go. Everybody else is like, oh, I'm going to do the stairs. I'm like, no, we get to do the stairs. So I think it's really an attitude of being fully alive, because the more that I live a big life, like you talked about raising your standards for 2024, the bigger problems you're going to have, the more of you have to bring to those problems. So you may not be happy in those moments because they're big, complex problems. Staff quit, new software, competition. Great, game on, let's go. So I think the key is how you frame things. And I shoot for being fully alive. Not always happy, but I'm much more fully alive in most situations. So that is how I've changed that narrative for myself.
I love this, Rock. This is powerful, guys. So it's, as Tony says, you mentioned Tony Robbins, he says the biggest problem is thinking that you shouldn't have any. The brain becomes polarized to the belief that everything should be comfortable and pleasurable and loving and awesome all the time. You didn't grow into a comfort-based universe. You're not living in a comfort-based universe. You're living a growth-based universe. So if you can come to the terms with the fact that challenges will arise, problems will occur, and you can tackle them with that mindset, such as, let's go. I'm not supposed to feel lovey-dovey and comfortable right now. I'm supposed to feel alive. That's a very different mindset And, think about it. If your problem is thinking that you shouldn't have any problems and then problems arrive, what's going to happen? You're going to suffer, right? Because your mindset is, I shouldn't suffer. And imagine that. That's nuts. And then we have someone like Viktor Frankl. And, Man's Search for Meaning. If you guys haven't read the book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, do yourself a favor, sit down or download the audiobook and listen and read. Because if Viktor Frankl can do that through what he experienced with the Nazis and the horrible stuff in the concentration camps, and he can focus on changing the meaning, then I can tell you, so can we. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I had a cute experience. Is I went to speak at a school several years ago, and I own a few real estate offices. And this agent walks into my office one morning. He goes, "Rock, I'm pissed at you." And I go, "Whoa, what happened?" He goes, "You were speaking at my son's school the other day, and this morning at breakfast, he knocked over the carton of milk, and milk was all over the place." And I got angry at him. And he goes, "Dad, you're not supposed to get angry at me when something like that happens. Rock Thomas says you're supposed to ask a better question. And his favorite question to ask is, what's great about this? So, Dad, what's great about the milk that we spilled?" And it totally stopped him in his tracks. And he went, "Okay." And so one of my talks is called "What's Great About This?" Because you can be upset about literally the spilt milk, or you can be happy that it didn't get on your pants. You can be happy that it was only milk and not hot tea. You can be happy about that you have a mop to clean it up. Happy that you can afford to, lose a little bit of money on a glass of milk. And you can, in that moment with your son, have a fun little cleanup party and laugh. Or you could be a miserable sod and you could be upset and pissed about it because you ask yourself a shitty question. So try that out as for your listeners. Is one of my favorite questions. As soon as something doesn't go the way you want or expect, just ask yourself, what's great about this? Look for the good in it, because eventually you can find the good. You don't have to wait a year to laugh about it. You can laugh about it right now. You can be fully alive while you clean up that milk. You can have joy because you know things are going to go wrong. They're not all going to go perfect. You're going to spill the milk. The other day I changed the windshield. I had a crack in my windshield. And we had a snowstorm. And then somehow a week after I changed it, another crack appeared. What am I going to do? Cry? Be upset? No, I went back to the mechanic and I said to him, "You got more business, man. Lucky you. My fate just turned out that way." And then about 3 weeks later, I listed his property for sale for $1.2 million and made $36,000. And I'm not even a realtor. I just own a real estate office, but it fell in my lap because of the rapport I had with him. So the $500 windshield that I went back a second time to repair brought me $36,000 and a new line of business. So what's great about this? There's always something great if you choose to search for it.
We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Let's take this mindset shift, this focus, this new way of thinking and acting and behaving and responding into consideration. I've done just the same. My son has spilt milk and I've gone, what the, and then I go, seriously? Hang on. Just, Viktor Frankl aside, 80% of the world's population has no clean food, no clean water, and no shelter. They don't have what we have. They're not blessed to have these things. So you may say, hey, listen, today's a shitty day because the milk is spilled. And I get it. Like maybe you're going through some shit. I get it. But, I said to one of my, I was coaching someone very wealthy that's a spoiled little brat, to be honest. And I said, one of the best things that you could do for yourself, with all due respect, is to jump on a plane and go down to a third world developing country, sit on the dirt, live in the shacks and starve with the children for a couple of weeks. Then come back to your country and tell me how shit it is to spill the milk. And he actually ended up doing that. He actually ended up going to India and spending time there and coming back going, okay, I'm needing to to take a good look in the mirror, because it's so easy for the mind to take all of these beautiful blessings for granted. So I know, and I'm speaking from experience, I have yelled at my son for stuff that I shouldn't have yelled at. And I recognized in the moment that that was my shit projected onto him. So thank you for doing that in the schools, man. Thank you for educating the children so the children can educate us, because I know I have a lot to learn from the young ones. Yeah, that's special. I mean, I suffer. I'm having a tough day. I spilt the milk. I'm angry. You're suffering compared to what?
Yeah. And the other thing that if you follow the trail of what does it mean, why are we upset that we spilt the milk? Well, we're probably upset because deep down inside, we have a scarcity mentality where we're like, I can't afford to waste money. Instead, if we have an abundance mindset, we just understand that there's actually an abundance of everything. There's plenty of oxygen. There's plenty of food to actually feed the whole planet. We just don't do it properly. And so you get a chance to examine yourself when you're triggered like that and go, okay, what's really going on here? Is it more important for me to try to change my child's behavior through anger? Or do I get a chance to reflect and see how I'm triggered and go, okay, maybe I need to just step up and be more abundant in my mindset. And then when the milk is spilled, I don't care, right? Because if it was water, maybe you'd have a completely different reaction. Why do you need to control everything? There's so many layers that you can visit with on an event like that. And then you can also say, what kind of parent do I want to be? Whose voice was that? Was that my father's voice that yelled at me and now I'm going to pass that down on to yell at my son? Or am I going to change the cycle and I'm going to be a better version of myself and be more loving and kind and playful? I think there's not enough playfulness brought into the world these days. Why is everybody so freaking serious? You know, you can't say this, you can't do that. Hurry up, kids, get to school, put your clothes on, go, 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 so you can be brainwashed and think like an idiot anyway. What's the point, right? Show up late. You know, my parents, my father kidnapped me and took me to Australia for 3 months when I was 12 years old. And they wanted to move there. And we ended up coming back because he couldn't find work. But I missed school for 3 months. I still graduated that year. What did I miss? Nothing.
Nothing.
You know? I still made it through. So, you know, I think there's a study, I don't know if you heard this, that kids were examined at the ages of 4 for their genius level, and 98% of the kids were genius. By the time they were 9 and tested, it was something like 65%. 14 down to about 38%. By the time they graduated school and went to college, 2% were geniuses. We're told to sit down, be quiet, don't move. What are you talking about? Kids should be moving. Kids should be interacting. Kids should be playful. When I teach and speak, I use a thing called super learning that I learned from T. Harv Eker, which is constant participation with the audience, asking questions. How many of you want this? High five that person. Okay, tell the person beside you what you just learned. There's this energy in the room constantly. But if you go to most speakers and most classes, how are you supposed to learn when your energy level is at 1? And you're so embarrassed to ask questions, etc. I teach my kids a trick when they go to school the first day. Espen, is I say, when the teacher asks a question, be the first person and go, oh. I go, just go over the top. And then when the second question comes up, do the same thing. And the third question, the same thing. And at some point in time, around the 4th time, the teacher's going to go, okay, Rock, I get it. You like to participate. You know the answer. Can we give a chance to everybody else? And your identity will be set for how long? The rest of the year. The entire year, you will be set as far as your participation, as far as being confident, as far as being known, you're set. One small activity that requires courage for less than half a day, and you're set for the year. Are you kidding me?
I love that. And you know what, when you first brought this up, my first thought was, where have I not jumped in and participated right away? Where have I been in experiences with a group of people where someone says, you know, who would like to go first, or who would like to, and you know, I did the same thing in my room, right? 250 people in the room. Okay, who would like to share first? And sometimes you get the hands, quite often, but that's because I pre-framed it. But often the crowd is sitting there going, oh, is it me? Is it me? It's like, where else in your life, when you met that special man, when you met that special woman, when you had that opportunity, where else in your life have you hesitated when you should have taken action? The universe is providing you with this opportunity. It's right there before you, but then you hesitated. So take a moment to think about that in your life. Viewers, listeners, where in your life have you been hesitating when you need to take action to make, as I say, the rest of your life the best of your life? Hey, Rock, I've got one last question for you straight off the cuff. You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. I want you now to imagine that you are on the world stage. Every sentient being alive is present and watching and waiting for your message to the world. Take a breath. Whenever you're ready, tell us, my friend, what is your message to the world right now?
Wow, that's such a tough one. Boy, you put me on the spot. And we kind of have covered it. I really do think it is nothing has meaning but the meaning you give it. And so become a meaning master. And if that is the one thing that you do, then you're going to constantly be reframing your results. And that for me has been the biggest gift for me. We have these unspoken expectations where we wish things are going to be easy. We're going to get the green light. The person is going to say yes. The employee is never going to quit. Our parents are going to tell us they're proud of us, etc. I bought my mother a house 7 years ago, and she was in assisted living, and she lived in this house for 7 years. And recently I'm putting her into an assisted living again. And I was traveling, speaking, and she wanted me to help her move the day of the move. But she was very difficult in pinning down the day. So it turns out that day I was out of town. And she chose to be angry at me because I wasn't there to support her for about a month. And so what meaning do I give that? This has nothing to do with me. It has to do with her little child feeling neglected and wanting me to be the parent and then take love away from me. And thank goodness I have this ability to reframe that, because otherwise I would be caught in this, she's a little bit of a narcissist. I would be caught trying to please her and bend over backwards and feel guilty. And I think so many people live their life that way, unconsciously trapped by the relationships with people. So yeah, just nothing has meaning but the meaning you give it. Become a meaning master and reframe yourself in so many situations so that you can own who you are and you're not trapped by the things you cannot control.
I love it. We can't change what happens around us, but we can change the meaning that we give it. Become a meaning master. I'm going to take a leaf out of that book, buddy. I'm going to have a look at some situations in my life where I can change the meaning and improve it even further. Thank you for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, if this has been useful, please click and share with as many people as you can, particularly those that you found that might be stuck in an old pattern or thought or trauma or something. Maybe they're in indecision. Maybe they need to take some action. Maybe they need to change the meaning. Share this with as many people as you can and help us make this magnificent world an ever better place. And of course, if you want to find out more about Rock Thomas, it's Rock Thomas with TH, rockthomas.com, and also Rock Thomas on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, brother. Thanks for bringing your thick skin and your strong mind to this conversation. I know it's very necessary at the moment. And again, I thank you for your time. It's been a privilege hanging out, man.
You too. Thank you very much. Great questions. Appreciate it.
Rock Thomas, everybody.